Devil May Cry 3 is seen as the one that saved the franchise from going down, but just how good was it? Well, this is my review on Devil May Cry 3. The first game was regarded as a classic, but of course it had its issues, like no mission select and in general just being a tougher game. This was nothing though when compared with the second game. DMC2 had a ton of issues which mostly stem from the development of the game. If I were to try and list all the issues, we would be here for a while, but the main one really is just how not fun it is to play. For a hack and slash game, that is not a good sign at all, since you are supposed to be alert at all times when playing these kinds of games. I mean, literally all you had to do in 2 is just gun. Yeah, not good. After all this, however, director of the game Hideaki Itsuno and his team began work on DMC3. With this, they had a lot that had to be fixed from the second game, while also looking back at what made the first one great. They took several design choices from it and implemented it into this game. Stuff like the battle system, the smaller slash enclosed environments, and the personality of Dante, where he is presented as one who taunts literally everything in sight, even if it's like 200 feet tall. These features would make their return in a good way. What also helps out is that the story got a significant boost with its writing. They brought on Japanese novelist Bingo Moriyashi. It's safe to say that Capcom was trying their absolute best with making this project the best one. Another goal the team wanted was to make the combat more fluid, fun, and stylish. All the stuff you see in the cutscenes should be something you can do in gameplay, and as a tiny side note, I am very glad this was a thing. We'll talk more about it later, but I am a big fan of being able to do gameplay stuff you see in a cutscene. It's very satisfying. It helps that they managed to get the motion capture from Just Cause Entertainment to assist in this. They use many action movie techniques to form the cutscenes and animations in-game. One of the biggest problems with DMC2 was that the difficulty was way too easy. This was a thing only due to surveys being taken for feedback from the first game being tough. It is noted that these surveys were mainly taken in Japan. With the Japan release of 2, the difficulty was considered okay, but when the worldwide release came out, it was heavily criticized and rightfully so. When DMC3 came out in Japan, it was a little easier than the worldwide release. This means that anyone who played it in somewhere other than Japan had an upscale difficulty, and you bet it was a tough time. An example is like this. Our normal mode was actually their hard mode. It might be strange at first, but you can grasp that pattern pretty easily when you think about it. This means when you get to the higher difficulties, good luck is all I can say. Saying all this though, it was better received than 2's difficulty settings. Just the main problem was that if one played this game and had no idea what DMC was, or didn't want to try and master all the game's mechanics, it'd be one heck of a challenge to stay motivated since you could lose very quickly. The good news is they took this feedback and they made a special edition where they made the difficulties more balanced for everyone. Plus it got some new features like being able to play as Dante's brother, Vergil. It speaks volumes, by the way, that they greenlit the special edition before the original version even came out. They had high hopes for it, and let's just say they were very much rewarded for it. It should also be known that any re-releases of the game are the special edition version. Those are the main behind the scenes for now. With that said, let's get into the game itself. The game came out in 2005 and the special edition came out in the following year in 2006. The game also serves as a prequel to the series in the timeline, so if you want to start at the beginning of the timeline for the games, this is it. Just like the first 2 games, DMC3 is a hack-and-slash adventure game where you play as the main protag, Dante. You fight against demons while also exploring environments throughout the areas. Whenever you take out demons, you collect red orbs to help out with upgrades, a prominent feature from the previous games. In terms of the combat itself, pretty much all the major changes from 2 are no longer here. We have the return of the button delay combos that I love very much, which means no more strange direction combos. The areas you fight in are enclosed and actually are a little bit better than 1's for the most part. Some of the areas you fight in are really fun and memorable, whether it's the scale of the fight or just the visuals. Something that they also brought back from 1 is the dodging. Here you can lock onto an enemy and roll to the side in order to dodge attacks, so no more dedicated dodge button. This might seem like a bad thing, but as we get into it, you will see that it was a good idea to bring this back. What might be the biggest change to the gameplay though are the guns. The guns here are toned down massively. They are not overpowered, but they are balanced enough to where they still do okay damage and provide some new mechanics. I think my favorite change though might be the style beater. So in the first 2 games, whenever you would fight demons, you would see a little gauge pop up saying encouraging words or something. It followed a system where the higher the gauge was, the higher your rank would be. The issue with this was, it never really told you what to do in order to increase it, which usually meant that just doing normal attacks without getting hit just does it. As good as it may seem, it didn't really feel like a challenge getting a higher rank, as just doing the same thing would raise it higher and higher. The devs looked at this and decided to revamp the system where you have to do different moves in order to keep it up. If you do the same move or combo again, the bar will just keep going down instead of going up. Seeing that bar go up during a battle though is awesome. It gives this feeling like, yeah, I can take them all on. By the way, it's nice that with the style system being revamped, it makes it easier to get points during missions, which then leads to getting more red orbs at the end of them. So in essence, the more stylish you are in battles, the better reward you will get at the end. With the combat being more fluid than before, returning features like dodging being better, this already looks like a fun time like the first game, but we now have new mechanics to help out the experience. The new mechanic in the game is the style action system. At the start of the game you have a choice of 4 styles to choose from. They all have a different playstyle in mind, so it's a case of, if you like the look of one of them, you can give it a shot. If it doesn't work for whatever reason though, you can switch to a different one. As a little disclaimer, however, I will mention that there are other versions of the game where you can style switch in mid-battle. Normally, if you wanted to choose a different one, you would only be able to do it at a divinity statue or before you start a mission. So if you really want to see just how crazy this party can get, the style switching in battle can really come in handy. With that said, let's get into the styles that you can use. When starting the game, you have Swordmaster, Trickster, Gunslinger, and Royal Guard. They all add a unique action to Dante's moveset. Trickster specializes in dodging enemy attacks. You can dodge out of the way with this style, and in some cases it's better than normal dodging. Especially since with normal dodging you can only go to the sides, whereas Trickster lets you dash in any direction on the ground. If you are near a wall, you can run up a wall, and it actually works better in this game. It's not used much for combat, but more for getting through certain areas easier. If practiced enough, you can go through entire levels without even getting hit. That's how brilliant Trickster is, and honestly, I love using it. Swordmaster is best used for combos where you can use more moves to take out enemies easier. This style in particular also unlocks some downright insane moves, like the Dance Macabre, which literally has Dante moving super fast in place while hitting all the enemies. It even ends with a slash to cap off the combo in a stylish way. All the weapons in the game also get new moves that you can use with the style, so it's always good to try them out, even if it's a lot to remember at times. Gunslinger is used for stylish gunplay where you can do moves like shoot 2 enemies at once or charging your shots. So even with the guns being less powerful, we have this as a replacement, one could say. Honestly, I don't have much to say on it except for that some of the moves you can use with the Gunslinger are really cool to look at. If I had to pick a favorite, it would for sure be Dante spinning like crazy while using his pistols in the air. I never get bored of seeing it. Even though it's one I don't use much, I appreciate for what it is as it adds something new and unique. Royal Guard is used for guarding at the right time and sending energy back to the enemy. They give you an indicator of this in the top left corner, and the more energy you have built up, the more damage you will do with the attack. This style is like Trickster in the sense of, with practice, you can go through entire levels without getting hit. These styles in general are awesome to use in game, though they took it one step further where you can level up the styles whenever you get to certain point thresholds. Whenever one levels up, you unlock new moves for that style. For Trickster, you are able to dash twice in rapid succession and you get to air dash, which is helpful for certain areas. These 4 styles are able to get new moves at level 2 and 3. By the time you get the styles ranked up, you will be super powerful. Although if I had to give one critique to this, it's that going from level 2 to 3 can take a while. This mainly applies if you are trying to max out all styles, and I'll tell you, it was tough trying to get the ones I don't use much to max rank. The best way to level them up is by beating bosses, as they can give a decent chunk of points each time you beat them. The only thing though is that it will take a while. That might be the only issue I have with it, and compared to other issues, yeah, this one is not that bad really. It's more of a nitpick. There are also some special styles in the game that you get by progressing in the story, those being Quicksilver and Doppelganger. These 2 cannot be leveled up at all, but it doesn't matter for them as they are very good. There is one more style in the game, but let's just say it's not one for Dante. We'll get more into that soon. Besides the styles, something DMC3 brought to the table were new weapons to use. In DMC1, all you had were a few swords that mostly had the same moves, though you had the Ifrit Gauntlet to help out with variety as that one was punching and kicking. DMC2 had just swords with the same moves, so there was literally no variety at all there. This game it's different as you have 5 different melee weapons to use and they are all unique. This ranges from the Rebellion Sword to nunchucks, gauntlets, and even a Katar. I am not joking when I say that. I think the Katar demonstrates the most that they wanted to vary up the weapons, and it works. The ranged weapons here also have variety as you can use Dante's pistols Ebony and Ivory, a shotgun, rocket launcher, sniper, and so on. The greatest part about having all these weapons is that you get to switch between them on the fly. Originally you could equip 2 melee and 2 ranged weapons when doing a mission, but even when it was just this, you could come up with some incredible combos, and depending on which style you are using, some weapons are even stronger than before. The Beowulf Gauntlet is one that I adore so much when using Swordmaster, as it has an amazing uppercut that deals a ton of damage if done right. Something that's a minor detail that I enjoy is that some of the melee weapons have an element to them and can actually have an effect on certain enemies. This is little stuff that they added that one may not catch at first, but when I first saw it, it blew me away that it was in the game. Oh, and you can surf on demons in this game. I still cannot believe this is a feature they put in. You can do something that's shown in the intro, and that's great. The fact that this game was originally on PS2 still blows my mind. It really shows how much can change over the course of a few years, since DMC1 was early in the PS2's era, while 3 was towards the end. Another thing that helped was that Itsuno was a director in many fighting games before, and it shows here. You can tell that this was his vision for the combat in this game with all of its style and overall pacing. The amount of combo potential in this game is virtually endless. Once again, like before, we have the Devil Trigger system, and it's also gotten a rebalance/overhaul. It is like the first game, which means the customizing system in 2 has been taken out here. But just like many things, that being taken out is not an issue. When using DT in this game, you get health regeneration, stronger attacks, and you move faster. This is very familiar if you played the first game. Taunting is here, and whenever you taunt an enemy, you gain some DT while also boosting up the style meter. A new move you can do with DT in this game is the DT Explosion. Whenever you have some DT ready to be used, instead of transforming right away, you instead can hold down the button for a little bit, go into a group of enemies, and release the button. When this is done, you may have just taken out all the enemies in sight, and it's freaking amazing. If this didn't happen, at the minimum you at least did some damage, and that's always good. Something which I never noticed until later was that all of the weapons actually have different designs when in DT. These designs were made by well-known artist Kazuma Kaneko. If that name sounds familiar, yes, he is the one who made a lot of designs for the SMT games. It's funny because I hear a certain someone is in one of those games. Anyways, the fact that they even had multiple designs for the DTs is awesome. The enemies in the game have a nice range, as when you start playing, they're easy to take down, but as you progress throughout, they get tougher. The first enemies you fight are the 7 Hells Demons, which at first might seem easy, but as the game goes, you see just how much stronger the later ones are compared to the ones you fight at the start. It's good that all 7 of them have different attack patterns as well. Other enemies you fight in the game are long-ranged ones who fire projectiles at you, and these ones can be tough to deal with. There can be some that fire on the ground or while flying, so keeping track of them while also fighting close-range ones will be a challenge. This said, I have to comment that we got cool demons to fight throughout, but we also have some unique ones like the damn chessmen. What a name, by the way. These guys can be unpredictable at first, but they are manageable. It is nice that they even went this far with the normal enemies. This leads into the bosses of the game, and we have a lot of them here, and most of them are good. Yeah, there are a few that are not fun, I cannot deny that, but most are good. They also range from being large monster demons to one-on-one fights against the enemies the size of Dante. It's fun doing these fights as well, since you also have to deal with a rival in the game, Vergil, who is leveling up himself, which makes those moments all the more sweeter when a confrontation happens. It carries the same traits as the first game with Nella Angelo from a gameplay and lore perspective. When you beat enemies in the game, they sometimes drop orbs, red ones, green ones, and white ones. The green and white ones give health and DT respectively, but the red ones are used for buying items and new moves. Throughout the game you encounter divinity statues where you can buy various items to use, so if you need them, this is where you get them. You can get items that heal you, or even ones that deal damage to enemies on screen. Plus you can also get items like blue orbs and purple orbs that increase max health and DT. A lot of what I have mentioned here is mainly the combat side of the gameplay, but there is another side to the gameplay, which is the exploring and puzzle solving. Most of the game you will be exploring the tower known as Temene Group. There are mostly combat rooms that you'll be fighting in when going through missions, but there are some puzzles along the way that you will have to do. This also leads into doing some backtracking in some of the missions, which honestly can be tough getting through. Only because since this is a tower going up and down, you may forget which room is which, so you might get stuck trying to figure out where to go next. At least whenever you were going around in the tower, the fixed camera angles are a little more bearable compared to before. It's by no means perfect, but it is better. Most of the battle rooms have a free camera, so you can move that around in order to get a better view of the fighting. The one thing for me that's odd about the puzzles is that for a decent chunk of the game, the puzzles are actually kind of kept down. They don't really make it that frustrating to go through, but in the latter stages when the story picks up, the missions become super puzzle heavy, which kind of slows down the pacing a ton. It almost feels like a big rush is happening and then a sudden slowdown happens. It's very strange how it occurs. I don't want to accuse it of padding, but the puzzles do feel like it and are really not that fun. The big one being the second to last mission of the game. You might know which one I'm referring to. At least that mission and the final have like incredible moments and bosses which make up for it. When going through the areas of the game, you will find blue orb fragments, and if you pick them up, you'll make up a quarter of a blue orb. If you find 4 fragments, you make up a blue orb, which means you increase your max health. These are helpful as you will be able to take more hits and will assist on higher difficulties. Sometimes the fragments are on the ground, but others are in the combat statues. These are here as a test to see how much your stylish rank can go up when in combat. If you meet the threshold, you will get a fragment from here. Another way to get fragments is by doing the secret missions. These are in areas that may or may not be hidden. One way you can tell is if something just seems off, whether it's a door or a thing on the walls. If you interact with it, you might enter an area. There are 12 secret missions in the game, and all of them vary from taking out enemies to staying in the air for a certain amount of time, or going all the way up on some platforms. They all have different objectives that you have to complete in order to get the fragment, though if you don't think you can complete it or don't have a certain style leveled up, you can leave the area to proceed through the normal mission. If one does want to get max health in the game, then you have to get all the fragments. I won't lie when I say some of them are tough to get, but it's worth getting them in the long run. Before we get into the story, we have to talk about the other main character you can play as, which is Vergil, of course. Vergil in this game is only playable when you beat the game. When this happens, you can play as him, and he plays differently from Dante. Now, if you're one who plays as Vergil from a different game and come back to this, you might be disappointed as he doesn't have as much. I gotta say though, I love playing as him in this game. Remember how I mentioned there was a 7th style in the game? Well, Vergil is actually the one who gets to use this style, which is known as Dark Slayer. It's essentially his version of Dante's Trickster style where he can move around to avoid enemy attacks. Though Vergil's works differently where it's more based on where the enemy is. He can move up, down, and forward. It might seem like a downgrade at first, but you can use this to get close to enemies even if they got launched far away. This helps with the pacing of his combat. It also has iframes, so if you use it even when just staying still, you can avoid enemy attacks with good timing. It's tough to get into, but as with many mechanics in the game, with time, you will see the benefits it gives. Now his weapons on the other hand are something different in the sense that when you start playing as him, you have all of them from the start. Yamato, Beowulf, and Force Edge. The Yamato almost plays like Rebellion due to the moveset given. You even get a different stinger move as Vergil with it being cool to look at. This is known as Rapid Slash. My favorite move though is the famous Judgment Cut. It looks awesome whenever it's used and it deals good damage on top of it. It even has a little detail where whenever you are using Yamato, if you hold down the attack button during a move/combo, you can right away do a Judgment Cut without much delay. It helps knowing that with good timing you can do more than one of them to maximize damage output. Vergil also has a gimmick where instead of doing a new move right away, if you take your time and sheath the sword, you get more stylish rank and DT. This is something that can be very useful as his DT is very strong, so getting any opportunity you can to get more DT charged up will help out. Taunting also plays a role in getting more. Next up we have Beowulf, and here it's slightly altered compared to when Dante uses it. You cannot charge attacks, but instead the trade-off is that you get some cool moves that have different roles. The best one of these being Lunar Phase, which deals great damage and is a fan favorite. This one can also be used in jump cancelling. The last melee weapon Vergil uses is Force Edge, and in this game it's basically the same as it was in the first game, though Round Trip does help out with varying it up. That's about it for that one. I mean, there is his classic stinger, but it's just like Dante, so again, not really much. This said, he doesn't use any ranged weapons except for his summon swords. Let me just say, these swords are so cool. For starters, it does good damage and it interrupts some enemy attacks. You can also use them to create a shield around yourself, which can be used for some hits, or you can direct them towards an enemy for more damage. Doing this, however, uses up a little bit of DT. The great thing about his summon swords is that there is no animation, so you can just do normal combo moves while using the swords for extra damage. You can even use it to keep enemies in the air longer. There is good potential with this being the way it is. Lots of cool combos can work with just using the swords and melee moves. When it comes down to it, Vergil's gameplay fits well with who he is. Calm, collective, and not reckless like his brother. The big takeaway is that his boss fights are essentially made into a playable character, and while I think it works for what it is, it does feel like a tiny something is missing. Me personally, a button delay combo for his melee weapons would have worked. It might not be much at all, but I do think it would have at least varied up his combo play a little bit. For what it is though, they did good implementing him as a playable character and I commend them for it. As a little note by the way, if one beats the game on hard mode or above, you unlock his alternative costume. You can play as Nella Angela while in DT, which is wild and I maybe yelled when I found this out. He is fun to play as in this form. Alright, let's get into the story of DMC3. As a little note, I won't be covering everything that the story has, so just wanted to let you know. With that said, this is DMC3's story. It begins one fateful evening where Dante is at his shop, though it's not open for business yet. A guest comes in who knows Dante due to knowing his father. The man gives an invitation sent by his brother, which is of course flipping the table on him. Just when Dante has a slice of pizza, he is ambushed by many demons who stab him all over the place, and then we get one of the best intros to any game ever.
This party's getting crazy. Let's rock.
It's safe to say that when I saw this, I became a fan right away. Bonus points, by the way, for slicing the pool table in half and yeeting it at that demon.
Don't bet on it.
Dante takes out the demons in the shop and then goes outside to deal with more of them, including the Hell Vanguard. Once this happens, the Tower Temenegru rises up, and on top of it we see Dante's brother Vergil, who has not seen him in a year. We also see the man who sent the invitation, this being Arkham. It's revealed that they brought back the tower as well. The tower was sealed away many years ago by Dante's father Sparta to protect the humans, so why would Vergil want to undo that? Well, let's just say power. We also see him take out the Hell Vanguard in one hit as well, showing that it will not be easy should a confrontation happen. Dante begins his journey towards the tower, and while this happens, we see a woman on a motorcycle who seemingly has a goal in mind, which also happens to involve the tower. As Dante goes through the tower beating bosses and getting new weapons, he encounters a new character known as the Jester. He is a strange one, but does provide important info. We also get to see Vergil and Arkham talking. Vergil notes that the woman on the motorcycle has entered the tower, and Arkham mentions that he knows of them. This, of course, is followed by one of my favorite lines in any game I have ever played.
A storm is approaching.
A storm is approaching indeed. It's subtle, but I love it very much. We see later on how the woman takes out a group of lesser demons with style, and it kind of reminds me of the beginning with Dante in the shop. It's cool, and it shows that she can take down demons. In another part of the tower, we see her confront Arkham, where it's shown that he is the father and that her mother has been killed. It's safe to say these two are not getting along. Dante makes his way to the top of the tower where he confronts his brother and they exchange words. Then they fight, and this fight is awesome. It doesn't end well for Dante, however. Vergil thinks he won, but Dante awakens to his Devil Trigger form and goes off to chase after him and Arkham. After he fights off some bosses and learns that the woman's name is Lady, he finds out that Vergil has betrayed Arkham and left him for dead. Lady at first assumes it was Dante who did it. She mentions how her father was obsessed with power and was the one who took out her mother in order to try and get it. But then Arkham tells her that Vergil was the one who made him do this. Lots of family rivalries in this story, as you can see. Dante then goes to the basement after taking out more bosses, though Vergil's already there, and he even takes out a boss that Dante couldn't. Vergil even takes his powers from it, which is not good, as it means the next time they fight, it will be even tougher. After he takes out Beowulf, he begins the ritual which requires the amulets and a blood of Sparta. This, however, doesn't work, and he yells a little bit.
Why isn't this working? Is there something missing? Must more blood be shed?
Before he can figure it out, though, Dante shows up and they fight again. The theme that plays during this fight is my favorite of the game. I love it. After the fight where Lady tries to intervene, we see the Jester once again, and he is awfully happy. It's shown here that the Jester was actually Arkham the whole time. Guy's a lot stronger than one may assume. He mentions how all the pieces were together for the ritual except for one. Blood from a priestess, which he gets from Lady. Despite everyone cornering Arkham, the ritual begins and he outmaneuvers everyone.
Take over the power of Sparta!
Now Dante and Lady have to climb back up the tower without Vergil since he is nowhere to be seen. They meet up in a library where they have a fight, and Dante realizes that he has to take down Arkham due to the family issues. This scene speaks many volumes, as beforehand, they didn't even want to talk about it at all. But as time went on and they fought, Dante finally gets to speak his mind on the matter and gains her trust. Lady gives him her launcher, which is named Kalina Ann after her mother. Dante goes to the top of the tower again and into the gate to the other side, where he finds Arkham in his new form, a Sparta lookalike, though he turns into a blob creature thing. Okay then, At the midway point of the fight, he realizes that this guy won't go down easy, however, help arrives just in time. Vergil makes his return and claims that Arkham cannot be the main event, and the two brothers team up to take him down. The second half of this fight is a very good spectacle. I do have issues with the gameplay wise, as you cannot go into DT, but that's really only a problem on higher difficulties. Again, for the spectacle that it is, it's great. It also provides one of the best moments of the franchise.
I'll try it your way for once. Remember what we used to say? Jackpot. Not very classy for someone's dying words.
Such a good scene, seriously. Once Arkham is taken care of, the two brothers go to retrieve their amulets and also the sword Force Edge, which is the one their father had. We then see Arkham fall back to the top of the tower where Lady finds him. After they exchange many harsh words, Lady finally gets her revenge and takes him down with many, many shots. It's an unpleasant scene to watch as she cries, realizing her fate has been sealed. We are not done yet with Fields, however, as we still have to deal with the final fight of the game. Vergil beats Dante to get the sword and still wants his amulet. He wants that power at the end of the day. This fight is intense as Vergil will do anything in order to win. He goes all out here with his moves and his own DT. He even does a move where all across the screen there are judgment cuts. It's something else. Dante barely wins this fight and knows that time is running out on the gate to return back, so he has to end Vergil even if it means taking him out. They have one last charge at each other with Dante prevailing. Note, by the way, how Vergil goes for the amulet rather than the sword with his last ounce of strength. Speaks a lot about him even in defeat. Dante tries to save him, but it's too late and Vergil falls down, trapped in the underworld. Dante grabs his father's sword and makes his exit.
What an ordeal.
What an ordeal is right. Dante gives Colleen Anne back to Lady. These two have gone through so much on this night. A little bit later on, Lady helps Dante get back on track and they agree to keep evil away as much as they can. Oh, and the name has finally been decided for Dante's shop. Take a wild guess at what it could be.
Want to know the name? Devil May Cry.
This story is fantastic. Itsuno had the opportunity to basically start fresh and got to show off way more of Dante than before. It being a prequel means that they had more room to figure out what to do with his writing and character. This story is also great as a standalone while also adding in context for events later on in DMC1. The demonic knight Nello Angelo is Vergil, who is basically a puppet for the evil Emperor Mundus, who, remember, is his father's enemy. It even shows in the extra credits scene that Vergil tries to fight him but fails. This even gives DMC2 a little bit of reason as to why Dante is significantly different in that game. Dante in this game is a very memorable character, and a ton of credit deserves to go to Just Cause Entertainment actor stuntman Ruben Langdon. What is interesting about this, however, is that during the development cycle, the devs had a ton of back and forth on how Dante should be. In the end, Langdon essentially did his own thing, which definitely worked out. It even impressed the director as well. Credit should also go to Vergil's actor, Dan Southworth. Both of them actually met several years back on Power Rangers, and Langdon has once said that Southworth is the closest person he can call a brother. This dynamic really shows in the scenes that they are in together since it just works really well. None of it feels out of place or anything of that sort. Honestly, this goes for all the characters in the game. Lady, Arkham, and even the bosses feel natural. Me personally, the casting for the game couldn't have been better. All of them nail their roles so good. Even with the story done, there are a few extras in the game that you can do. Once you beat the game, you unlock a mode called Bloody Palace where you go through a gauntlet of fighting demons on each floor. In this game, it's random, so you could face a certain demon on level 100, but next time you play the mode, it might be a different one. In order to beat the mode, you have to get to level 9,999, and once you beat the final fight, you have beaten Bloody Palace. The mode in this game can be very tough, especially when you get to the last 1,000 floors since the difficulty is maxed out. Something that could help though are the super costumes. If you beat the game on very hard and Dante/Vergil must die mode, you unlock these rewards. These costumes give you infinite DT, making it a lot easier to take down demons. Just again, got to beat the tougher difficulties, and let me tell you, they are not easy. It's a challenge for sure, so if you want that, these modes are here for you. And how could I forget the music in this game? The OST is downright amazing. This will be different for everyone, and that's okay. The thing for me with this OST is that if I think about the music when I'm not even playing the game, that means I'm a huge fan. I can name so many tracks that are my favorite, but the main ones are Vergil 2, both Dante and Vergil's battle themes and combat, and the Divinity statue. These are just a few of many that I love. What this game shows is that if you give a director control and let them do what they want under their vision, you will succeed. It won't be easy, but it will work, and this shows a great example of that. Everything came together for Itsuno and the team. The game itself sold very well and became the franchise's savior. If you have never played a DMC game but want to get into the series, this is a great place to start. This was my first Devil May Cry game, and I am proud to have gone through it. It's a wild time, but worth it. Just want to say thank you all for watching the review. This has been a very special one to do. If you want updates on when new videos are coming out, follow them socials like Twitter. That's all the housekeeping stuff. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.